Who has felt lost when looking for patterns on the internet? You have made your awesome character. It's time to put some clothes on. Great. You have your marvelous designer, but when you try to look for patterns on the internet, it's difficult, and even if you find it, they're difficult to understand. Plus, if something doesn't fit, well, which point are we supposed to move? Why does it look always like spandex? The aim of this tutorial is to set the stage for the rest of the videos that are going to come. I will attempt to teach 3D artists some basics of pattern making so they have a better understanding of their projects. In order to do that, we will have to learn what pattern making is, some basics, measurements, and fabrics. Now, as a disclaimer, I'm going to tell that I am not a professional pattern maker. These are things that I have learned over the time that I spent on the fashion industry, but I will do my best to pass on this knowledge that I have acquired. Now, pattern maker, basically speaking, is the art of drawing a pattern on a paper that's going to fit well. There are two main ways of doing this. One of them is basically what we will be doing, and that is to draw on a piece of paper and then cut that piece and drape it on top of our model. The other option is the one that's called moulage. This is to draw directly on top of our model or dummy, then flatten those out and extract a pattern from there. In the industry, the pattern maker is the link between the design team and the producer. Some say the pattern maker is separated from the design. However, I think this is wrong. The pattern maker has the difficult task of making real a design. Without a good sense of proportions, style, attitude, etc., this becomes very difficult. Nowadays, there's a new tendency whereby companies are hiring designers with pattern making knowledge. This tells us there can be a perfect equilibrium. In the same way, we are used to the concept artist. The concept artist will do a better job if it has some knowledge of 3D, and the 3D artist has to have some design knowledge to fill the gaps, interpret well the design, and also give some ideas or inventive solutions. Before we start any project, we have to take into account the measurements, scalability, and the material we're going to use. In the industry, measurements are crucial. However, in 3D, we work more as a tailor, making clothes tailored for each character. Although we have the advantage of having the mannequin of our client, the tailors usually have to work from measurements. They have the person come in to the shop, they take measurements, and then they have to work from there. Sometimes, if they have money, they can make custom mannequins, but we have that advantage. For this reason, we are going to use some universal measurements. Due to the block pattern, we are going to fit on our future characters. I'll use free characters from Das 3D so everyone can have the same one. I know this website is a little bit sketchy. For 3D artists, sounds like cheating, and myself at first I was a little bit skeptic. But if you want to just get your hands on making clothing without having to worry about topology and having good proportions, this is a great resource to have. You have the basic free version that you can use, which has good proportions already. However, I'm going to use a paid one, link on the description. Scalability refers to what we are going to call block patterns. These are basically base measures, but in pattern. If we know that we are going to doing sleeves for a number of characters, because we are not going to only do one, we have to do this. This is the basic way of doing it. So after deciding that we are going to go on this route, we are going to make a block pattern for each part of the garment. So one for the sleeve, one for the neck, and etc. And these block patterns are going to be used in the new designs that are going to come. So this is basically taking like a base mesh and then making a new character out of it. When I say fabrics, what I mean is that pattern making is like a reverse UVs. Because the body is a 3D object, fabrics have to be cut so that they conform to the body. That is why it's important to know what type of fabric we're going to use. That is, fabrics can stretch or can bend, and we have to always keep in mind that whatever piece we are cutting is going to be wrapped around the body. So we have to be always mindful of how that piece is going to go around the body, and what are we going to have to do in order to accommodate different volumes. The fabrics are usually divided into two categories. Although we have more than two, these are the main ones that are going to be used and that they are used more predominantly in the industry. These are the woven fabrics and the knitted fabrics. And the woven fabrics are constructed with a row of threads that they are called warp, and another that goes across called weft. Because of this, there is little stretch going on in the warp direction, but there is some stretch in the weft, thus helping us with the fitting. Threads can be woven in many ways. Here are the two main ones. And knitted fabrics are different. Knitted fabrics are made, roughly speaking, of a single thread that interlocks. It goes around the fabric and it's interlocked with itself. It makes this fabric highly elastic. On top of this, different threads can be used in any of the constructions that I've mentioned. These threads can be constructed of a wide array of natural and man-made materials, each of them with different properties. I could make a whole series of videos on this, but for now, suffice to say that it's crucial to know which type of material we are using. The pattern maker is thus concerned mainly with the direction of the fabric, the gravity, and suppression. Because of the thread construction, the fabric can be cut in three ways. Straight. This means that the warp goes along the body. This construction is stable, although has some elasticity going around the body, which helps with the fitting. Cross. This is cut in a 90-degree angle in respect to the warp. This limits the stretch, and it can be used in cuffs or yokes, or to make the print make sense. And in bias. These pieces are cut in a 45-degree angle. Pieces cut in this fashion tend to compress on the horizontal and stretch on the vertical. We are under constant force. We must keep this in mind. Gravity has to always be in the back of our minds, because when we are constructing a piece, gravity will always pull things down. A dress with no shoulders needs to have some structure underneath to hold it in place. In the same way, anything that we want to feel airy, we have to account for the gravity, because if we want something to be floating, we have to make it so that it's light, or that it hangs from the shoulders so that it looks like it's floating, or things like that. Now, I don't know another word for suppression. This is a technique of getting rid of excess fabric while creating shapes and pockets for the human form. The main tool is a dart. Most designers don't like this because of the visible cut, but if we are dealing with woven materials, this has to be done. Now, as I said, knitted materials are highly stretchable, so that means that pieces done with this type of fabric, they are more forgiving in our mistakes of the shape that we use to the body. That means that a pattern that it's not too well done, made of a knitted material, is going to conform better to the body. But we are using woven materials, they are more stiff in a way, and so this has to be done. Straight drawing, which refers to making patterns without cuts, can work, but as I said, the knitted material has to be used in this type of patterns. So with this concludes this video. ArtStation is a great place to look for designs if you are like me and you're not a great fashion designer. Just remember to ask for permission first. With these concepts, the steps that we're going to take will make more sense, and you are going to start to look at pattern making with a whole new perspective. Next, we're going to have a look at our tools. Mainly, I'm going to be using CLO, which is a sister program of Marvelous Designer. But the difference between these two programs are very little. It's just CLO is more oriented to the fashion industry, so it has maybe more technical terms in some of the properties, but that's all. Feel free to use Marvelous Designer. I don't think anything is going to be difficult to follow if you use the other program. They're basically the same. Well, hope you like this video. Leave a comment if you feel like it, and until next time, farewell.